supposed to be.
Phil's coming.
Okay.
I'll give it another minute.
I saw him walking in.
The City Council for the City of Rollingwood will come to order Wednesday, October 18th, 2023 at 7:02, and we will start with roll call with Ms. Brown.
Present.
Alec Robinson.
Kevin Glasheen.
Phil McDuffie.
Sarah Hudson.
Gavin Massengill, being quorum present, we will move on to agenda item number, actually, we will move on to public comment. Anyone wishing to give public comment on agenda items not on the agenda? Yes, Jerry? Yeah, nope. Not on the agenda? Waiting. Okay, great. You're up.
Yeah, while it pertains to the drainage,
Okay,
it's sort of my observations
okay.
on it. Okay, my name is Jerry Fleming. I reside at 305 Nixon Drive. My comments, they, like I mentioned, generated by the 2 to 3 year process on the drainage project. And first, I want to say that I should be noted that the mayor and his staff spend many hours of their time working with the consultant, the utility reps, Rollingwood citizens.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear.
You can't hear it?
There you go.
There we go.
Okay. Well, first I want to point out that the mayor and the staff have spent many hours of their time working with the consultants, utility reps, and the Rollingwood citizens. A neighbor of mine informed me that the Rollingwood citizens are all smart, all alphas, have all the facts, and have the solution. Well, I don't have all the facts, but I have a recommendation for the city to take the next time they have a capital project. And that is to hire a professional engineer project manager. When the city engineer is not present or is not qualified. Now, on the civil drainage project, the consultant was also the city engineer. But I did not see the evidence of the city engineer, his presence at any time. Now, larger institutions that do capital projects have in-house staff, architects and civil engineers, structural MEPs, to review their capital projects and the design. State of Texas facilities, UT Systems, City of Austin, AISD, the Fort Hood, Travis County, Integral Care, or MHMR. Now, I've had the privilege to work with all of them at one time or another, and they all work similarly. And what they do and the functions they do, I have incorporated into 6 reasons you should hire a professional engineer, project manager, or architect. Okay. Number one, the first thing the project reviewers do is review the schematic preliminary design. They check to see if it makes the basic program requirements. They check the sizes, calculations, type, solutions. They ask, are there better solutions that involve less maintenance? Maintenance is always higher in the owner's view than the designer. The designer wants something to work. The owner wants to keep it working. Even stormwater systems have maintenance. Reason number two, verifying invoices. Professional managers can tell how much design work has been done, how much is left to be done. And in so doing, it ensures the public funds are appropriately spent and provides professional justification. That by itself is a very important matter. Number three, communication with property owners. Now, it's not really common to have property owners involved in a construction project. And especially owners that are not familiar with the construction project, cannot read drawings, do not know the language or the terms. And so it would be only common sense to expect you're going to allot a lot of time educating them and showing them what is to be expected or planned or evolved. Communication should be with all the homeowners, not just one. If conversations are held with one, it should not be a surprise that the resulting design is found unacceptable by those that were not consulted. The project manager can make sure that all the homeowners are treated equally, more or less. Reason number 4, continuity of the project design. Time is of the essence applies to the construction as well as the construction design. After a pause, designers and their staff take a time to become familiar with the project details again, what decisions were made, how to implement those decisions. The longer the delay, the longer is the fresh period. And the longer stops also interrupts the work floor in the designer's office, who are usually working with projects that have a deadline. Similarly with homeowners. After a couple months delay, they may be very frustrated that there are no review drawings to see. Project manager can ensure that the project proceeds in a orderly and timely manner. He also ensures that the project is finished or, well, put it this way. He knows that a project can be put on what we call a temporary pause and finished or come out later. There's different ways of doing that. But you keep the continuity going. You give everybody time to do it. Now in that case, when it comes off, you check it for, code changes, model number changes, and it may be an additional and should be an additional expense. But the project has been timely finished and everybody knows what's going on. Okay, number 5. Quality control. Now the engineer manager brings a fresh pair of usually real experienced eyes to the project. And he can spot discrepancies, missed details, possibly completely missed items, typos, and so on. And this can prevent change orders later. And it also allows for a smoother construction process. And he can also facilitate that the homeowner's markups are included in the drawings, or there's a reason given why it's not. Final drawings and bid documents. By maintaining continuity of the design process, the professional project manager can give the owners the opportunity to review the final documents. And if there are requested items, they can be included in the final documents, or at least discussed. This final step can avoid a chaotic scramble to produce an addendum within a limited time. And the items are left off the addendum, and there's no time for another addendum, then you are going to have to be included by change order, which are more expensive. What would be the expense of a professional manager? In the time I spent reviewing these drawings, I estimate that you should anticipate about a 2% of the budget fee, and maybe do it hourly up to a max. And this can be assessed by reducing the number of change orders, which can run between 1% and 10%. I believe we got 5% budgeted. Many factors involved in that, including the quality and accuracy of the drawings. But it's also possible that the project manager fee is completely covered by reducing the number of change orders. However, even if it doesn't, all the reasons mentioned previously add value to the project and facilitates the design process. I want to thank you, all your citizens, all your city officials, for your time spent doing the city business that allows me to stay home and watch TV. And I also want to thank Ashley Hickey and the city staff for all their time and dealing professionally with the Rollingwood citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, and thanks for all the time you've spent helping us on that project. Okay, any other public comment on items not on the agenda? She's on items. Okay. All right, then hearing no other public comment on items not on the agenda, we will move on to agenda item number 2. And I will, well, let me lay it out first. Agenda item number 2, public hearing, discussion, and possible action regarding a special use permit application for 2712 Bee Cave Road, number 106, to authorize operation of a restaurant, including alcoholic beverage sales for on-premise consumption. And I will let Ms. Wayman give you a quick synopsis of this, and then I'm going to open a public hearing on the item.
So 2712 Bee Cave Road, suite number 106, is in the city's C2 zoning district. Restaurants are not currently permitted in a C2 zoning district without a special use permit. Proper notice was given, and this went to the P&Z on October 11th. The P&Z did recommend approval of this SUP for Pepitas. This is where currently the Loverboy Pizza was, or they've closed down, but that's the location of it. If y'all have any specific questions, in the packet you can see there's a letter from the applicant where they described how they felt that they met the requirements. We also have an observation report from our development services manager, Nikki Stotzenberger, explaining the criteria applicable to the special use and how this use and this request meets that criteria.
Thank you, Ms. Wayman. With that, we will open a public hearing on agenda item number 2. Anyone wishing to testify may do so, and I'm opening that public hearing at 7:14 p.m. Anyone wishing to testify on agenda item number 2 may do so now.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
If we don't have public comment, may we recognize the owner of Pepitas, who's here with us this evening?
We sure can. Step up and identify yourself.
Carlos Yescas, and I'm with Pepitas Cafe.
Welcome, Carlos.
So we're happy to be here. We're happy to have y'all consider this special use permit. We're anxious to get going and finish up, so we can go ahead and get open.
And we're anxious to have a margarita. So I hope that hope everyone feels the same, or at least 3 of them. Thank you, Carlos. Anything else you wish to add? You don't have to. We're
We
happy
just
to-
welcome y'all to,
Great.
when you get a chance to stop by and try our margaritas. They're the best.
All right, we'll do it. Okay, thank you. With that, we will close the public hearing at 7:15, and I will open it up to council.
I move approval of special use permit application for 2712 Bee Caves Road, number 106, to authorize operation of a restaurant, including alcoholic beverage sales for on-premise consumption.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown, a second by Ms. Hudson. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 5 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Carlos, that was one of the smoother ones we've done around here, so congratulations. Look forward to having you, and welcome to the neighborhood.
Let us know when you're open.
Yeah.
Y'all
Okay.
will be the first to know, trust me.
Great. Great.
Say the other ones weren't making margaritas.
Yeah, exactly. Not sure what they were making. Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 3 under presentations, and I will open agenda item number 3, presentation and discussion on the quarterly investment report for the fourth quarter. Do you believe we have our able comptroller? See what I did there?
The city of Rollingwood has all its funds invested with Texpool. We currently have approximately $719,000 invested, and that's composed of the general fund, water fund, wastewater fund investments. For the fourth quarter, the yield was average about 5.3%, and the year-to-date interest that we've made from Texpool is about 29,000, a little bit over 29,000, and we consider that to be a safe investment for the city of Rollingwood. Yield has come up obviously to this last year because of the rise in interest rates. Any questions?
Any questions for Abel? Very impressed by these that yield these days. Okay, hearing none, we will close agenda item number 3. Move on to agenda item number 4, presentation and discussion on the budget review for the fourth quarter. Abel?
For the 22-23 fiscal year, some of the items I'd like to make a note of. Property taxes, we collected about 97% of what we had estimated on the levy. Overall, the general fund collected 99% of what we had budgeted. And on the expenditure side, we only spent 90% of what we had budgeted for appropriations. In the water fund, we collect 114% of the estimated revenue we established at the beginning of the year. And on the expenditure side, we only spent 89% of the budget. Wastewater, we collect 106% of our estimated revenue, and we expended 98% of the amounts budgeted. Bear in mind that these numbers are, I hate to say the use the word preliminary, since we're talking about the end of the fiscal year, but these numbers may change due to any entries the auditors may make at year end. They're called adjusting general entries, but I don't anticipate anything significant being made. So overall, I would think we did fairly well with our budget, our expenditures, and our revenues. Some of the line items that on water sales, specifically, we collected 114% of our water sales that we had estimated. On wastewater, we collected 113%. I guess you can attribute that to the dry summer that we had. And the sales taxes, we collected 112% of what we had estimated at the beginning of the year. Any questions?
Just wonder how you get 112% of estimated, I guess sales went up, that's sales tax. Okay.
Yeah, the 112% on the city sales tax, we had budgeted $625,000,
But there are just more sales.
and we collected $700,000.
And we try to keep those pretty conservative when we're budgeting, just so we're always pleasantly surprised at this time, as
Great.
opposed to the other option. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Abel. Okay, with that, we will move off of agenda item number 4. I'm going to momentarily skip agenda item number 5. We're getting a presentation loaded up and having some issues with the email, so I'll come back to 5 momentarily. With that, we move on to to the consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
You have a motion by Ms. Hudson. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hudson, second by Mr. McDuffie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 5 ayes, no nays, motion carries. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 9. Discussion and possible action to select a contractor for the water CIP and drainage projects. I'll let Ms. Wayman start us off here, and then I think we have Greg Blackburn from K-Freeze to walk us through the bid proposal.
All right. I believe on Thursday of last week, we held the bid opening here at City Hall for the water CIP and drainage projects. If you'll take a look in your packet, we have included a letter from K-Freeze and Associates with the summary of the award of the bids that we received, as well as the bid tabulations and their recommendation on the selection of a contractor for this project. And Greg, I'll let you fill in anything there.
Yeah, the bids, we received a total of 5 bids. We had the water CIP bond program packages 1 through 4 as our base bid, and had 6 alternatives. The first 2 were the 2 drainage projects, the Hubbard-Hatley and the Nixon Pleasant drainage projects, and then alternatives 3 through 6 were to add full street repaving for the water projects. The base bid just included the trench repair, so we wanted to get costs in case the city wanted to repave the entire widths of the streets. So, yeah, we are recommending AO Services. They were the low bid. I have Carl Sontag here with AO Services here today. We've worked with them in the past on previous projects, called other references from other cities and other clients, and couldn't have better things to say about them as a contractor.
And council, I don't, I'll say for the future, and I'm not sure if Greg did this on purpose or what, but the first bid that we opened was the $8 million bid. And I was real nervous for about 2 minutes. But they got significantly better after that. And thank you. Thanks to AO for putting in a solid number and clearly reading your homework assignment, because you not only hit your overall number, but you hit them in the right ways so that we could accomplish what we needed to accomplish. So. Does anyone have any questions for Greg? I will also add to, we had talked many times about the desire, the pie in the sky was to try to have enough money to do the repaving when we do the water projects. We weren't sure that was going to be a possibility, which is why we did the alternates the way we did them. And I really appreciate K-Freeze for working with us to try to give maximum flexibility within the bid package and try to get all the numbers in so that we could put the puzzle pieces together as needed. But just to point out, those alternatives, as Greg said, that will include the repaving of all of those streets, like a full repaving, not just a patchwork repaving.
But it's half street repaving or full street?
Full street.
Full street.
Okay.
Yeah, so really pleased with that. The reason we broke them out is so that we could peel those off if they were just out of the dollars. But because of the way we did it, we were able to keep it really competitive and get those worked in, which will also lend itself to the conversation we'll have with our other engineer here in a minute about the pavement assessment. So anyway, any other questions for Greg?
Just when we think construction might start and when it'll finish, just to give us an update.
I would imagine we need to get contracts signed and everything. I'd imagine we're shooting to start in November, and then the total duration is 18 months. It was 12 months for the base bid for the water, and then each of the drainage projects that we adds 3 months. So it's a total of 18.
So do we know, oh, sorry. I was gonna say, do we know what order are we trying to do projects simultaneously, or are we doing them?
We're gonna start with the water. We're still working out some of the easements on the drainage, but I think Carl had mentioned they might bring in a second crew to work on the drainage while they're also working on the water as well. So it might be some more activity going around town, but it'd be getting done faster. So
Yes, ma'am.
In terms of the projects, I had understood that the cul-de-sac projects would probably start first. Is that still the plan?
yeah, we haven't talked to AO Services about that. I don't know if there's any.
That's still my plan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
That's still, as far as I'm concerned, that's still the plan.
Okay. And will this start before the holidays, before the end of the year?
Yeah, I would imagine we start breaking ground in December. It'll just depend on when we get materials in.
Okay.
They won't start until they get the pipes in.
I would recommend, that being the holiday season, that we have notices going to those residents within those cul-de-sacs so they can
Yeah.
plan their holiday events with knowledge that the streets may be torn up.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we have a lot of language in the contract about requiring at least 2 weeks' notice before you mobilize to a new area town. We'll work with the city to get door hangers and text messages and whatever we need out, just so people are aware.
Being that it's the holidays,
Yeah.
I would recommend at least 30 days.
Yeah.
If you're planning on having family or a big party, you need to know that at least a month and a half, a month ahead of time, if not. I think if we are going to do those cul-de-sacs and start before the holidays, notice now that they'll be getting, that this may be torn up, should go out as soon as we can.
That's a good
You
se-
don't want to,
Yeah.
if people are going to have a big party, you don't want to have the street torn up.
I agree. And that's actually a good segue. Let me talk to you a little bit about process, because I think it speaks to what Greg, because he and I sort of had this conversation earlier in the week, or end of last week. So my goal here is tonight is to make this recommendation to you for AO Services. That is our joint recommendation. We don't yet have all of the easements signed. We just got the final 3 back this afternoon. They're in legal review, and I didn't want to. I'd made commitments to certain residents that they would have time to look at what's been marked, and they wouldn't be rushed. So I didn't want to force them to try to do something this afternoon. So my goal is to make this recommendation tonight. Let's have all the discussions we need to have. As soon as we have those easements, and I hope that would be the first of next week, I'll get with you and we'll call a special meeting to come in and actually approve AO, because we need to do all of them at the same time. And then once that occurs, then we will enter into contract. How long from the time they make that vote to getting something papered with AO, how long does that take?
I don't think it'd take long.
Couple weeks, 30 days. Okay, so we'll paper that with them, and and kind of simultaneously, I think, start, because you have to then approve their first order of the materials, right?
Mhm.
And then those materials would need to come in. So my thought, Councilwoman, would be, as that's happening, we'll go ahead and let the cul-de-sac folks know, hey, we've chosen a contractor. They are in the process of ordering materials, and within, in 30 days, we'll start. So that, I think it would fit with what you're recommending.
Yeah. I hope.
My point is, I think we have a little lag time to do that notice you're talking about once you take that vote.
Yeah. I just think if we know which cul-de-sacs we're going to start on, we can do that sooner than later. We need to get it signed up, but because of the holidays, I think the more notice we can give people, the better.
And I guess we're telling AO right now, go ahead and look at the cul-de-sacs, give thought to how you want to phase that.
Well, and the other question I have is, do we have the designs? Are the designs done for those? The K-Freeze designs
Correct.
are done.
Yeah, we just need the easements to be finalized.
Okay, for easements for the
Not
cul-de-sacs.
no. I saw those ships passing in the night. No,
we need easements
we do
for
not
cul-de-sacs?
need easements for
Okay.
cul-de-sacs. He
Good.
was
Oh,
talking
for
about,
For
yeah.
drainage projects.
Right.
Stop.
Yes, okay. Then, the, other question I have, when we get to paving, have y'all coordinated with Google on when they're gonna do their micro trenching? Because I really, the conversation, when Google was being approved, I asked their person, I've forgotten his name now, but the man who came and talked to us, I asked him how they would want to proceed and what did they think about the paving issue. And they he recommended that paving be done after Google comes in. And so I really hope that y'all can get with Google and staff can get with Google and y'all can get this planned so that we're not tearing up the pavement after we just paved these streets.
I totally agree with that. That's-
And
yeah.
I think for AO's benefit, they need to know whether Google's gonna go in before they come in or after they come in.
Yeah.
And so that needs to be coordinated.
Yeah.
And I hope,
I agree. That's my pet peeve with the city of
can we
Austin.
get a report next month
Sure.
at our meeting
Yeah.
on that
We'll-
coordination, please?
Yes, we will
All right.
reach out to Google. I totally agree with that. And once you guys have a chance to kind of think through how you think you're going to phase everything, just get back with us so we can, and we'll try to get some more information from Google as to where they are.
Well, I think the two contractors need to get, K-Freeze needs to get with Google and work this out, please.
Sure thing.
Is what I would hope would happen.
Okay. Okay.
So, just so everybody understands the funding that we have 5.3 on the bonds.
I'm glad you asked. I
Okay.
had a little cheat sheet made for me this afternoon. Yes, our Proposition A water projects, that total Prop A bond was 4.3 million. The total Prop B for City Hall was, and the public safety facility is 2.5. So that's total bond funds available for A and B at 7.8 million. We have issued to date a total of 3.9 million, and that's all for the water projects. So there's 3.9 million ready to be deployed today. We have 1.4 million left for the water projects that we will deploy toward the end of the project. And then we have $2 million in tax notes that are available for the two drainage projects. And AO, this is my reference to them doing their homework, they left $107 on the table for so he followed the instructions the way I try to get my 16-year-old to follow instructions. So, good work. I'll pay you the 107 out of my pocket. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
It does. I just
Yep.
wanted to make sure everybody, the public, whatever, understood where we were getting the funds to pay for all of this. So.
This is carrying through on the work that they did at the ballot box.
I will add one more thing, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned to Ashley, one thing we do, a lot of our clients do, and I would recommend as well, is authorizing a contingency on the fund
yeah.
as well.
Mhm.
Whether that's 5 or 10%, just for any change orders during construction. There's a lot of utilities we're working around. If there's any changes that require additional funds, obviously it'll have to get approved, but it just doesn't require a change order to come back to council. That would slow the project down. And again, it's not guaranteed money that's going to be used. It's just a fund that we can pull from if there are changes.
Yeah, that is part of our recommendation, and you'll see in the one sheet that we'll revisit at the special city council meeting when we call it. Our recommendation is to do that, but I'm glad you brought it up. Talk briefly, if you will. There was some savings that occurred because the base bid first included the patchwork, right? But because we were able to go with the alternatives, that freed up some dollars that we would have available for that contingency. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the base bid included the pavement repair of just the trench. The alternatives included the full street, so there's some overlap there of the trench width. So we have about $150,000 of quantity we don't expect to use for that paving as well.
So you're
you're right in the ballpark on that contingency with it still being in the money. So,
But the bids include that money in the total.
correct.
So if we approve the contingency, we are doubling that.
No, because they've already talked to.
Well, yeah, so because this is a quantity, a unit price contract, the quantities are an estimation, so if they don't get used, they don't get paid for whatever quantities that is, if that makes sense. So if the overlap of those quantities for the paving, they're just not gonna hit that full amount, so they won't have that $150,000 paid out from the city.
Okay. Well, if we have that already, we already know that that shouldn't need to be done. Do we really need to authorize another $100,000 up front because we will already have that in the,
Well, you actually won't be approving. You won't be adding to the dollar amount. You'll just be adding to what it can be used for. Correct. Yeah.
okay. So.
It's
so
that's that 5% contingency is just to account for anything that's unforeseen at this point.
Yeah, but I think.
Right, I understand that, but what is the dollar amount that we're approving then?
You would be approving the dollar amount that was bid, but you're just reallocating a portion of that to the 5% contingency, essentially.
Okay.
It's
So
not.
So we are not adding.
You're not adding.
An
That's what
additional
I'm.
5%.
That's correct. That's what I'm trying.
Separate line item.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yes.
That's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Going back to the paving and when the paving might be done and when Google might be coming in, what happens if the water project, let's say the Pickwick water project, Lower Pickwick is constructed, we don't have Google Fiber in, what happens in terms of paving until we know when Google Fiber will come in and the street can be paved?
Yeah, we would have to talk, Carl. I don't know if you all have a plan for the phasing of the paving, if you're going to do it after each street or at the end, or.
Yeah, I mean, it will depend on Google. Most of the time, we like to pave at the end of it, so that it's clean. We walk away, it's done. Temporarily, we'll be putting either cold mix, so it's drivable. It'll be a temporary patch. It'll look like a patch that's permanent. So drivability and everything will be accessible to residents at that time. But the final mill and overlay won't happen till that to the end of the project. And expect if Google's there, then we can kind of phase it. If that whole sec's complete, Google's already there, we'll go ahead and finish that so we can check it off and
Okay.
go to the next.
What if Google's not there?
If they're not there, we can leave it patched so that it's kind of a finished product, but drivable, accessible, and so they, instead of hot mix, which is your normal permanent, it'll be a cold mix, which is, it's not hot, it's cold, but it's still a drivable.
Okay,
So like you see, when they do downtown Austin or when they put a temporary, HVAC or not HVAC down, but you can still drive on it.
all right.
Do like a temporary.
Have y'all worked on a project where Google was coming in before or after y'all before?
So yeah, you made me giggle when you brought that up because Google kind of runs at their own beat of the drum. So I mean, even if we're trying to consult them and see, they're just kind of hard to get a hold of and give you a real date. And if they want to come in, most of the time they come in and do it. Most of the time their ditch is pretty small though and pretty minimal patching work, I guess, compared to like what we're going to be dealing with the bigger water line.
Yeah.
So.
What my concern has been is that you're gonna, if they come in after we've repaved the streets curb to curb, then you're gonna have potential water intrusion on both sides of the street where the because their capping is not like the full asphalt, at least from what I've read, so,
So, but if the project timing on this is 18 months, how long is Google supposed to take before they get in here and start doing that?
Yeah.
I mean, they seems like
It's a
they
pretty
should-
big window, yeah.
They
Right.
should be in here and out of here sooner than 18 months.
Yeah.
If we plan for it, I would think it could be done. I just want to make sure we've planned it and we've ensured that it happens that way.
I agree.
Right.
We will have a stern conversation with Google.
Well, it doesn't have to be stern. I just think we need to, for our own sake.
Yeah, no.
Our taxpayers' money, we need to.
I'm just saying it might need, based on your comments, that might need to be
Yes.
stern.
But I think we leave it temporary and don't finish do any finished pavement until they get in there.
Until they get in
And
there.
if they are past, a year to 18 months, then we really need to cross that bridge. But I think they'll get in there before.
Yeah.
Cool.
There'll be new technology by then, and we have something different than Google Fiber if they don't get it in here sooner.
Mr. Robinson, you
Yes.
have something?
I just could, I get a little more like background on the company. Is there like AO Services, like how long they've been around?
Yeah, why don't
where
we-
they based, like just.
Why don't we have you come on up? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad I came.
Yeah. Identify.
Yeah, my
Just-
name's Carl Sontag. I'm Director of Pre-Construction at AO Services. We started in 2010. Basically, the owner, is an entrepreneur by heart, started with actually doing playscapes and ended up working for single-family developments, doing amenity centers, and just kind of compounded and grew from there. I was with Cash Construction for 16 years, doing heavy civil underground utilities. That's my career. Graduated from Texas A&M, and anyways, they brought me on board 2 years ago. We've been growing authentically. Like Greg said, we've worked for the city of Kyle, worked for several municipalities around the area, Georgetown, and so we actually, I think we've done a couple of things for the city of Rollingwood, smaller in scale compared to this one. But yeah, that's kind of us in a
So have you guys done like a water project like this before?
Yes, we've done water lines. We've done waste. Like I said, with the city of Kyle was a big 24-inch wastewater line with it was 25 feet deep with polymer manholes, 6-foot polymer manholes. So yes, sir, we have.
Then, like one other question I have is because I took the 3 bids that were in the middle and like averaged those, and it came out about 5.1 million or something like that.
Sure.
So how are you guys able to do this like 33%? I mean, I love the price. I'm not complaining. I'm just
Sure.
wondering what your edge is or your advantage is in that.
Yeah, I think it depends on production is the biggest driving point. Some of these other contractors might have had a lower production in their bids, so that's what I think it is. But we're also not as big a shop as some of those other guys, like the Joe Blands and the other competition that was there. We're a smaller shop and have good crews who work hard together and get things done. So
Less overhead.
Good answers.
yeah,
Passed. So.
yep. So
Yeah, and K-Freeze has worked with AO before and also ran traps on references, and I think everything came back glowing. So, yeah. Okay.
all right.
Any Ms. Brown?
I came in early and Ashley let me look at the actual bid packages and saw that y'all have done a lot of work consistently for a long time for TxDOT and for some other players in this area, GBRA and other, which is a Guadalupe Blanco River Authority. They've done work for other utility companies, they've done work for other cities, so I was impressed with what y'all have done and the consistency of repeat work that you've done for a number of your clients.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Any other questions for AO? I don't anticipate having AO back for when we do our special council meeting, so if you have anything for him,
You're in trouble if
Now's
you're
the
back.
time. Yeah. Try not to have anything derail on us. But all right, thanks again for taking the time for being here tonight.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Look
We
forward to
look
working
forward
with you. Yeah.
Thank you for your bid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for that.
thank you.
Like I said,
Look
it
forward
was.
to another good project.
I'm just glad we could find some Aggies to work on the project.
I was gonna make a different comment, but I'll hold my.
Greg, anything else?
Not for me. Looking forward to it.
I think it'll be good. Thank you for all your hard work on putting it all together, and I do think the way we put this bid, or the way you put it together, enabled us to hit our numbers. So that was much
Absolutely.
appreciated.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I did see someone from the audience.
Just quickly explain what the logic behind the order is. Why are the cul-de-sac lines first, and then what is the order for the project?
I'll be honest with you. The cul-de-sac line and my let me back up. As far as the CIP project, so there are 4 of those projects. 4, correct? Yeah. That is the smallest grouping of those 4 CIP projects. And honestly, my thought was they're the smallest group, and so let's get a win and let's kind of dip our feet in on those cul-de-sac projects first. Make sure that we got a good process down for our notices. Make sure we got a good process down for how they're going to deploy, how they're going to order, how we're going to approve things. So in terms of the CIP projects, I want to do the cul-de-sacs first because they're the smallest subset of those 4. And so I wanted to try to kind of cut our teeth on something that I thought we could all handle while we got our processes down. That does not mean those are for the CIP projects. I anticipate that we'll have a simultaneous and parallel conversation with them about the 2 drainage projects. And just because we're, quote, doing the cul-de-sacs first doesn't mean that they won't also deploy on one or both of those other drainage projects at the same time, assuming that we can get the easements in and that gets approved along with the CIP, which I assume that they will, and I have no reason to think they won't, but that's why we're holding on, because we have to approve all of it at once, and so we're going to approve all of it at once, or we're just going to approve the CIP. Mike?
What is the capacity of the AO to have multiple teams to do
Yeah, like, let's talk
I'll,
to Greg.
yeah, hop on. I'll sponsor that question. Hop up to One more question for AO. Do you feel like you will have the capacity to be able to work with us on deploying in multiple locations at once?
Absolutely, and I think, like Greg even mentioned it earlier, it hopefully will expedite the project. Being able to, at first I was like, is that okay with the city and the residents if we're disturbing multiple areas?
It's beyond okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we do have the resources and capability of expediting and putting multiple crews in different areas.
And to K Freeze's credit, like that's how they anticipated. They anticipated that would be the contractor's feeling on it, where you have some ability to move some chess pieces here and there when you have different crews available and you can deploy at the same time. So.
Yep, absolutely.
Given that, what is the realistic start date for the Nixon project?
And I'll sponsor that one
That's gonna
for you.
be
So,
drainage
assuming that we get the easements that we need, would you believe? It's my understanding and conversations I've had with K Freeze that we could probably execute on those pretty quickly, like you would start on Pleasant Nixon at the same time as probably we would start on the cul-de-sacs, right?
So the only problem with starting the Nixon and storm drain improvements that soon would be the precast. There's normally a longer lead time on precast box culverts, which is what's in the bid. So those probably going to have to be the start of 24 to actually like get going, getting traction on those. So
That's phase 2 when you start phase 1.
of the water or what? Of that project.
He considers phase 1 to be that channel back behind. So I know,
Sure,
but he
sure.
didn't know
Yeah,
that. So
I'm taking it holistically. Sorry, yeah, I didn't know
right.
that. I mean, we could start on phase 1 sooner, but I don't plan on doing that because I want to get it all done the same time. So I would do. We're gonna do that start of the year, first of the year. Is there?
But we'll go ahead and you can order all your materials and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And you'll know after you order those materials what the lead time is in that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And early next week, Greg and I were meeting to talk about schedule and expediting moving some of these pieces around too. So
Okay.
we'll have a solid schedule, comes with the contract, and we'll be able to answer these questions like really in detail too. So
Yeah. And I do want to have that discussion with you specifically on Pleasant Nixon.
sure.
Cool.
All right.
Anything else?
Yeah,
All right.
sorry, back to the funding part of it
You're
again.
good.
I'm kind of know
That's why we're here.
Sarah mentioned, but just make sure I understand. Can you go over that one more time? Like, okay, how much, it was like 4.3, you said, is what Prop A was?
Prop A was 5.3 total.
5.3.
Yeah, 5.3 total. You issued earlier in the year, we actually issued 3.9 million of those bonds,
Okay,
and they are in the bank ready to be deployed
okay,
anytime.
got it. And then the monies for the other two projects, the drainage projects would be,
They are also in the bank and have been for quite some time,
Got
and are also ready to go.
okay.
And that's 2 million
Okay.
even. Okay. All right, great. Thank you all. Thanks, Greg. Thank you, and look forward to working with you guys. Cool. Okay, with that, do we have our pavement stuff worked out? Okay. With that, we will move off of agenda item number 9. Oh, and council, just before I close 9, I will keep your phones on. Ashley will get with you as soon as we have the 4 easement. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the 4 easements in place for both of those projects. We'll be in touch to set a quick council meeting to go ahead and move forward with AO, assuming that's what you want to do.
And could we not just approve it contingent on the easements, or would you rather come back with it?
I really need to.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked K Freeze that question, and we need to do them all together. Okay. With that, we will go back to agenda item number 5, presentation of the pavement condition assessment by WSB Engineering. We have Jay Kennedy with us. We've all visited with Jay before. Jay, thank you for working with us. This was a budget item from last year. And I've had the preliminary report, but if you will go through with council and tell us how our streets are doing.
Sure will.
And just a reminder for those listening, this was sort of in concert with the water CIP. We wanted to get a grasp on our streets. We've talked about also trying to take some baby steps year to year to make sure that we're keeping our streets up to speed instead of deferring the maintenance, so that we have a huge bill, once a decade. We're going to try to do a little bit better job of being methodical about keeping those streets on a more regimented schedule, and on kind of a 5-year rolling schedule. So with that, Jay, tell us about our streets.
All right, Mayor, thank you, and members of the council, good evening. It's nice to be here again. A couple new faces on the council since the last time I was here, and thank you for the opportunity. We're going to kind of work in tandem here, I think, right? Yes. You can go right ahead to that objective. Thanks for your patience, by the way, and moving me till later in the agenda. But really, the mayor did a nice job of teeing up what really the objective was, which is, let's take a look at the roughly 10.5 miles of streets that the city has, rate those streets using a highly technical method, which literally involves walking all of the streets. We visually inspected those. And then, and we did that back in August, and we sure appreciate Izzy and his crew for accompanying our team out there. Nobody likes seeing somebody wandering around looking at streets without a city truck out there. And so we were very appreciative of having him along. We then used that data to calculate really a pavement condition index with a 0 to 100 for each road segment. And then we took a look at a few approaches for how the city might look at maintaining its street system. And then ultimately, the main objective was to look at, on an annual basis, how much money should the city really be budgeting to maintain its road system, okay? So if we go to the next one. So how do we evaluate the pavement? And again, literally, this is walking all of the streets in the city, looking at the distressed cracks, rutting, which is just like dips in the road, things of that nature, how severe those are, the extent, all of that gets taken into account, and then we can put that into a software program that will help us evaluate and create those pavement ratings. So if we then go to the next. So the good news for the city is overall your road system is in pretty good shape. With few exceptions, the roads are either rated in the good category, which is probably over half, and then there's a good chunk in the excellent, and then on the lower end you see some of those fair and poor. And on the slide and in the report, we're showing kind of those ranges for the PCIs and what range those fall into. And depending on that PCI, that's going to affect the strategy for taking care of the road. I mean, it's pretty intuitive. If a road's brand new, you don't have to do as much with it. If a road's totally shot, that's a different strategy. Overall, the city's at around an 84 PCI. That's higher than most communities that I work with. A lot of them that I work with are more in the 70s. And so the city's done a good job of taking care of its road system. If we go to the next, this is just some images. We picked segments that have a certain rating just as an illustration of, well, what does a 90 look like? What does an 80 look like? So you can see on here, we've got, starting from the left, one that was rated at a 92. And again, that's a segment. In some cases, you might have a half mile of road and only be one part of it that's in really bad shape and the rest is in better condition. Moving to the right, you can see the ones at 80 and then 66 and 48. So it's pretty easy to see the difference in those roads. And, we just wanted to make sure and illustrate that for the council. If we go to the next image, this is just looking at, well, what type of maintenance do you really do on the asphalt roads in the city? And for roads that are in excellent and good condition, and you see a lot of it when you drive around town, a lot of crack filling. So you've done a good job of doing that. That is a really good way to preserve your roads. And then as you move to the right in these images, there are a little more involved processes where you might mill off some of the existing pavement, put a new layer on. You might reclaim or tear up all that pavement, or you might have to totally reconstruct a road. Okay? And before really moving into any specific project, just like the ones that you were just talking about here, you'd want to go out and do some work with pavement coring and some geotechnical work to make sure that the recommended maintenance type is something that you're actually going to be able to get that value out of. Okay, so we didn't do any of that as part of this. This is a visual inspection. So if we go to the next page, I sure appreciate this. So a couple of graphs here. I think the takeaways here are, you can see on the left, the figure on the left, the higher rated the road, the less expensive it is on a per mile basis to maintain that road. And as the rating and condition of that road goes down, that cost multiplies substantially. And so the real key takeaway for the council is you really got to pay attention to the roads that are in the good category and even the fair, because if you let those go, then all of a sudden they fall down into those low categories and you've got a huge expense. Okay, so even though the road looks good, you got to stay on top of that. And so the strategies you've been using are good ones with the crack filling and some of the other things. If we go to the next one here. So when I first looked at this chart, I had to call our team and say, okay, what does scenario 2 mean? Because if you look at this, we kind of ran 3 different scenarios. One is you do nothing for 5 years. Don't spend $1 on your roads. You can see what that then, predictably, the overall condition of your roads is going to go down. Scenario 2, what that essentially means is take all your worst roads and upgrade all of those so that they all get above 75. So that means you're going to be in that range where you're paying a lot to get those roads constructed. That's why you see a much higher budget of roughly $2.6 million over 5 years to make some of that happen, right? What we more likely are going to be recommending is how do you maintain your overall road system? And if you can maintain over the course of 5 years, you can be at about a $1.2 million budget, which is roughly $275,000 to $300,000 a year. It's my understanding that you're already budgeting some funds for roads, and I don't think that this is a huge jump up from where you've been at, and so I think that's hopefully positive news, but that's for the council to determine. The thing that we like about it is it is a balanced approach. You can focus on those roads in the middle, but you are eventually going to need to take care of the ones that are on the poor end as well. If we go to the next page. Yes,
Let's
sir?
pause there for a minute. I assume you're going to sort of get into what next steps would
Yes,
be
sir.
in terms of putting together a plan. But before you get there, I think what I'm going to recommend. Actually, I'll just let you continue, and then
Okay.
I'll tell you what I'm going to recommend.
Right. So I won't spend a lot of time on this because I just mentioned it, but really we're looking at, we give you a range in there, and I think you're good anywhere in that range. I mean, obviously, when we get to a range that narrow, to maintain your roads in the overall system, to kind of maintain that overall condition index. And so if we go to the next page, we do have some next steps. Mayor, thank you for teeing that up. Number one is incorporating the projects that are pending. You just talked about that tonight. We rated the roads as they are
Right.
today, and we did that deliberately because we didn't want to make assumptions at that time. Now we can incorporate that in, right? Another next step would be to develop that 5-year prioritized list. We did not prioritize a list of roads. We're kind of up here right now saying, here's about how much you should be planning for. And then each of these steps is another level down until ultimately you're executing a road program. And there's other decisions to think about in terms of the funding plan, whether you're banking cash or whether you're borrowing. Those are decisions for the council, whether you do projects every other year or every year. Those are all decisions that can be made moving forward.
I
And
have a
then-
question.
Yes, sir.
We just heard about our bids for the water line project, which included some street work. How does that relate to what we're talking about here in terms of maintenance?
And that's a great segue because that's where I was going. And I think it's pretty much what you just said too. And that's where Councilman Lachine is going, is what I would like you to, I think what I'd like to see is that prioritization that you just mentioned. Like, let's prioritize without any other assumptions how you would redo these streets. And then let's work with Greg and Kay Freeze and see of that prioritization, to Mr. Glachine's point, what of those are about to get knocked out in the next 18 months, and then they can get pulled off and go to the very bottom, because our assumption then is that they're going to be new roads, right? And so then we've got a new prioritization list with the assumption of what Mr. Glachine is mentioning of, because we're about to knock some of those streets out. And I, to your point, I have not overlaid those yet to see what we're about to accomplish with our bond program. So
That also adjusts the cost.
correct.
Because we
Right.
are funding those street repavements
Right.
under the bonds for the water projects, and so that would not be a part of.
Right. I'm really hoping that there's a lot of those fair.
Yeah, you hope it's not
Or
your
not.
brand new roads.
Greg's already he's ruining the surprise. He's like, yeah, I've already looked at it. Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, I think what it gives the council is a good baseline that, hey, here's kind of what you can count on to maintain your street system. You're investing some dollars right now in your infrastructure, both the water and the roads. We account for that and then take a look at how that impacts the prioritization and potentially that annual cost. I don't expect it to change the annual cost much because frankly, you're spending all of that and maybe then some.
because
on the
honestly,
roads
that
now.
5 years is probably going to have to get extended. Like, we probably aren't going to have 300 a year. We pretty consistently have 150 a year, and we do have some unexpended balance that we could add to that as we go. But we're probably not, for the foreseeable future, going to be in a place to do 300 a year, and so we may have to lengthen out that 5 year
Mhm.
process a little bit. And maybe it goes to 8. I don't know. But that's the discussion I think we have to fine tune. Okay, instead of looking at what the ideal situation, like we may have to give you a number and say, okay, if you had this number range, like what would that look like in terms of years?
Yeah, and actually, Mayor and Council, that is a scenario we can run. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's actually a pretty simple scenario, but I don't think that helps us as much as doing what we just talked about, which is incorporating the projects, looking at what that list is,
Right.
attaching costs to that, and then making the adjustments within the prioritization list itself.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have a quick question. That 150 you just mentioned, is that some dedicated road fund that comes out of sewer, as I recall?
No,
or
it's off of our sales tax.
Sales tax, but
Yeah.
it's required to be used just for roads?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna ask you my Google question, if I might, Jay. Have y'all had experience with micro trenching and impacts on roads? Or
Well-
anything to share there?
Well, I mean, maybe not with Google in particular, but I've had my share of run-ins with utility companies and how they do their work, right? And my hope is that this Google project is not a 5-year type of project, that they will be done before you get into any of the road maintenance program. It's gonna have an impact on the projects that you have right in front of you, but I wouldn't anticipate projects from this till after that occurs.
So would you recommend we get Google Fiber in before we repave after the water project?
Well, yeah, I would. You don't want them coming back in afterwards,
Okay, all right.
if you can avoid it, right? That's, it's because it'll be somebody else. That's the thing. You build your road, then somebody else comes, and that's kind of the nature of the beast.
Okay.
Okay.
Other questions?
Other questions? Yes.
So in the executive summary, there's a comment there that gravel roads and segments the city did not want included in the analysis are not covered in this document.
There's one short segment of road that is not blacktop, but we didn't rate that because it wasn't an asphalt road, and I can't remember which one it is. Izzy knows which one it is. There's a short little segment of road. It's just one
Delana?
little segment.
I think it's Delana.
So Delana, but I noticed when I was looking at your good, poor map, that section of Delana was yellow, not orange. I've walked that section of road. I would say it's orange at best. And I wouldn't, for the most part, it's an abandoned section of road that occasionally is used by one of our residents, and people walk down that. But I'm hoping that is the section of road that we are not going to be including in trying to revitalize or do anything with.
That's the section of road that should be improved in coordination with the city of Austin and Endeavor and everybody else to make it walkable for parking, for ACL and everything, so that gets all the people off of off of Bee Caves Road and the Barton Springs. When we have all those people in there,
Well, there's typically a gate there that prevents traffic going back onto that road. If you're talking about, there's no road travel. I understand people walking back there.
But it's not really walkable either. It's not
It's totally walkable.
in the dark. It's not very smooth.
We're not advising it.
I know,
But-
but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
Improving that would be nice, but it should be
It
done
would
in
be nice,
coordination
but
with a lot of other
Yeah.
people and not
Yeah.
paid for by the city
Yeah.
of Rolling Wood by
Yeah,
ourselves.
I don't actually.
We're in agreement
yeah,
on that.
I don't know why Delana's on there, so
Yeah.
it's no cars go down it.
Right. And to your point, if you're gonna walk it, then a little bit of coyote spray might be in order. So.
Oh, yeah, we got that. We can talk about that in a little bit.
Sorry, on the agenda.
Okay, so what would the next step be then? Would you suggest coming back with kind of the
I would say that it's really items 1 and 2, which is that you incorporate the pending projects and then develop a prioritized list, and that can be, it might take 5 years to do them, it might take longer, but that's going to depend on funding.
And you do that for free, or?
No, sir. But we can work with Ashley to develop to develop what that'll take and get that to her
Okay.
before we start.
Why don't you get with Ashley and just throw out what it would look like and what would
Okay.
be included? I
Yes,
think we'd be interested in
Mhm.
trying to further develop it. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Also,
Thanks, Jay.
just looking at this really quickly, some prioritization that also includes considering mobilization costs and aesthetics. I mean, because I'm looking at like Hatley has green, yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, orange, green.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't make any sense to do this much that's orange and not do all of it, or, you know, it's like, do the whole street.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a great comment, and the work that we were doing, we're rating the segments. But
Right.
when you group a project, it's never our recommendation to come in, well, let's do this block and then let's do that block. Always looking to group projects as
Right.
much as possible in a logical manner.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
All right.
Good. Okay, moving off of agenda item number 5, and we will now then go back to agenda item number 10. Discussion and possible action to grant the mayor authority to negotiate a contract for construction oversight of the water CIP bond program packages 1 through 4 and drainage projects as selected by the city council. Council, this is a topic that we've talked about in the past. We've talked about a lot related to like the city hall project and that sort of thing. And we've experienced firsthand the maintenance issues that we encounter when we don't do this correctly. In fact, it's a big reason of why we have some of the problems that we're having to do with this bond, because when some of these water lines were originally done, they weren't backfilled correctly, they weren't seeded correctly, they had large rocks that were on top of the pipe. The water lines weren't buried at the proper depth. I mean, just a whole host of construction oversight problems that now we and you as council are having to manage and pay to do correctly. So I think it's important for us to we have a great public works crew. We all know that. Easy does good work, and he's certified in some areas and has good experience, but he's not a contractor, and he's not out building projects every day, just like when Alec was asking what the experience was of the contractor. We have expertise on staff, but we don't have that depth of type of expertise that we need to make sure that we're kicking the tires and looking in the hole and seeing that the thing is getting built correctly. Kay Freeze does some of that, but really Kay Freeze's role as the project manager is really to manage that back of the house. They're looking at and Greg, hop up if you would, but they're going to be looking at the materials list to make sure that the things that are being ordered are the correct things and they're ordered in a timely fashion, and that they're going to check to make sure those materials are paid for and the invoices get processed and all that back of the house stuff. But what we're talking about here is really a guy in a hard hat working with Izzy on a daily basis to make sure that we're laying eyes on what the project is, that we're making sure that it is constructed correctly. Have I explained that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is they're not there 8 hours a day.
Sure.
There's some weeks that they might be there 3 days a week. There's some days they might not be there all week. It's just depending on what they do. I think it's critical. It's been important. A lot
And,
of
and
our
pause there. Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
No, absolutely.
and my vision here is that Izzy is there every day. And so he will be the boots on the ground every day. He will be the eyes and the ears for this individual that we would bring in to provide this oversight and inspection. And so in some ways, and we could go about this a different way. If we were a bigger city, we would do it like Austin does or others, and they have in-house people that this is what they do. We're not big enough to do that, so we need to augment that staff, not hire the staff, right? And so that's really what we're doing. But he would work hand in glove with Izzy and Public Works to make sure that the project is laid out correctly for the week, that Izzy knows what he's looking for every day, and Izzy can work with this individual to make sure that there's good communication and all that's going smoothly.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And I think that the vision is that they would work with the Public Works crew, show them what to be looking for on a daily basis, and then really we want them there for the critical points of the projects, like water tie-ins, switching services over, stuff that might put people out of water. We want to make sure that the contractor is well coordinated, that we're coordinated with public staff, that the communication is out there so that it's done correctly the first time, and to really minimize any issues that we have.
And I've said this to Greg, I'll say it publicly, and it's no offense to them, but I think it's important for this individual to be contracted directly with us, not through KFA, because I would like to have our own relationship with our own person, who's kind of helping us hold everyone's feet to the fire and who reports directly to us on that. So
Is this, but they would recommend this person, or
they have helped us put some thought together. Okay. We have somebody in mind. Mm-hmm. We're trying to get that kind of worked out, but we have somebody in mind who does this.
It's not an employee.
Not an employee.
No, it's not an employee of us. No.
Yeah.
Well, I would just say, I would reiterate the importance of having someone who's independent. I appreciate what you guys have done. You're very professional and do a great job. But in my experience as a developer, when I have an architect and a contractor, I might hire the architect to do some construction oversight. And I think we have like 60,000 maybe in our contract with you guys.
It's like 40
to do some construction management, which is great. But then we always hire an owner's rep, because in my experience, whenever there's a problem, either the designers and contractors blame each other or cover for each other. Not to accuse y'all of anything, but I'm just saying that's what happens.
Yeah.
And so I just think it needs to be a very independent person.
Agreed. Yeah. And I've experienced that too. Again, not that you would,
yeah,
but
nothing personal.
It just,
no, I think
it's a checks and balance. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing I'll add too is that we find a lot of value in is if they, we didn't go and pothole these utilities. If they find a utility conflict, that inspector routinely works with the contractor, come up with a solution in the field to keep them moving. They don't require us to go out there and redesign it. They're used to doing this, and so it's a big value on that front as well.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Just that in the field problem solving component. Again, things that Izzy might very well be able to handle on his own, but I think it's in our best interest to have somebody that's doing this sort of thing all the time and sees these problems and knows how to fix them on the fly. As well as when we get to that repaving process that we've talked about a lot, we want to make sure that all that's done correctly so that it's done. When it's done for 10 or 15 years, and we don't have to come back in and repave the repavement 2 years later.
I will say that my understanding, before my time, but my understanding of our sewer project was that we did not have such a person managing the construction of the sewer, and the only person that was overseeing the construction worked for LCRA, and that's how the budget ended up being more than double what the original estimate was. So
that is also my understanding, and I very much want to avoid that.
Right.
So, Alec.
Yeah, I guess we heard earlier about the importance of having a professional engineer on doing this kind of work. Is that what you're kind of thinking?
No, I don't. I think those recommendations were about a lead up to a project more so than about this. This was hard hat in the field at the time of construction, and I think those comments were more directed at
the design
a
phase.
design,
Right.
a lead-up design phase.
Okay.
Ms. Brown?
Will that, what kind of qualifications would this person have?
It would most likely, I can base this on some due diligence we've already done, probably would be someone that has inspection. There are folks out there who provide inspection services, who provide this exact type of construction oversight. There's actually a provision in state statute that allows us to hire this type of person independently without going through RFP. So this type of skill set definitely exists out there. The individuals that, in fact, Izzy, the individual that we've sort of had an initial opening communication with, is somebody that Izzy's worked with and knows. But it's typically someone who's been in construction previously and or in the inspection, civil inspection type of industry before. So it's that skill set is what we're looking for.
Will they be able to look at the design drawings and know that what's going in the ground is what was
Yes.
designed?
Correct, absolutely.
But not necessarily.
They don't
an
design it. They're not an engineer, but they know how to read the plans and how to inspect the materials and make sure that it's the right material and it's being installed correctly and all that.
They're there to find a solution other than a change order,
Right.
which is what we don't want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other questions I have are, what's the budget for this position?
So we think that I would personally like to try to do it on a retainer basis, but for the numbers crunching part of it, it looks like it's probably going to run about anywhere from $100 to $130 an hour or something like that. And as Greg said, this is probably 2 or 3 or 4 hours a week in the field type of commitment from this type of skilled person. So we think that it's probably a budget anywhere for the whole $5 million, or I guess more than that. What's our total? What else? We $7 million. It's probably around 120,000 all in for the 18-month period, something like that.
Okay.
We're not 100% certain on that, but I think that's ballpark is probably around 120.
And are you asking for authority for that
What I would,
today?
I'd like authority to try to go have further discussions with someone. I'd like to go ahead and be able to hire them. I would be comfortable if you wanted to put a cap, like you do oftentimes, and say not to exceed 120 or something like that. Would be fine with me.
That's a lot more than 5 hours a week at $120 an hour. That's like
That's so-
15 hours a week or more.
For 18 months.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to have someone here that much, honestly, if we could have someone.
I am very much in favor of doing this. I'm a little hesitant to approve a blank check.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking
Well,
for a
and
blank
I have
check.
a few more questions.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I would be more comfortable getting some additional information and fleshing it out a little bit more and bringing it back when we have to have a
That's
next
fine.
meeting.
And I was trying to move, when we first put this on the agenda, I was trying to move quickly so we could get somebody on board before we actually started pushing dirt. We've had a few more conversations tonight, and now we know that we're going to have to come back for a special meeting anyway. So I'd be more than happy to try to, with your sort of, if everybody's in agreement of going down this road, we'll try to put some more meat on the bone, and then
Yeah.
I would bring it back to that special council meeting when we have that meeting.
That, I would be a lot more comfortable with that, so we have a little more,
I
more
don't-
definition on what we're approving.
Yeah, and I don't blame you on that. That's fine. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to see that the council get a monthly report from this person.
We could do that.
You know, I think it's important to keep the council up to date on that.
Keep the citizens up to date on it too.
Yes, and then here's one other question. Will this person or will K-Freeze ensure that as the project is built, that the as-built drawings get incorporated into the city CAD so that we have that
Yes.
retained and we have all the info we want for our mapping?
Yeah, that's a great point.
But that's something that keeps falling through the cracks. And I want that I would like to see that assigned to someone as either, you know, if it's this person or if it's someone else, that we also include that task.
I totally,
Because it
yeah.
will save us a bunch of money down the road.
I totally agree. I would point out that it has fallen through the cracks, not because of this council or this mayor, but
But I think it's important, Mr. Mayor, that we make that assignment directly and also say, we want these, because we're gonna be doing this in pieces by project, that we have a requirement in whatever that commitment is, that those design details get incorporated by a date certain after completion as things are being built, and we don't have just a bunch of data at the end of the project that we've got to sort out.
yeah, no, that's great. I don't think that would be this individual, but I do think that's Kay Freeze. And talk to us about that. How do you do that?
Yeah, so it's standard that with their monthly pay applications, they need to provide an updated schedule, and
They being?
the contractor provide an updated schedule, and also what we call red lines of what they've installed and any changes. And so that's our way of each month getting.
That gets it into your program, that doesn't get it into the cities.
I know.
Yeah, and we can talk about how we get it into the cities. Typically, the as-builts get done at the very end of the project, but that process is making sure that we're getting those throughout the project and not waiting 18 months and getting a.
Again, that's getting it to K-Freeze. How do we get it to the city?
Yeah, and we.
But you're saying
then
that
we would update. We can update.
You're
our
saying that you
GIS.
do that at the end, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was just talking about. I thought your concern was making sure that we're tracking that throughout the project.
My concern is making sure of that,
Mhm.
and as importantly, getting it into the city system while the data is.
Fresh.
Yeah, and that's
Fresh.
something we have been doing when we found changes, is working on making sure that GIS is updated.
Is that in our contract with you about that end process?
For
For
this
the as-built-
project?
For the as-built or anything?
For the as-built, it's something we've done with WSB is doing it, or the.
WSB does our GIS.
Yeah.
So we work with K-Freeze. We report any changes or anything we found in the field. Y'all develop a file for us, share it with the city, and we share
And
it with WSB.
That's great, and that's good. I understand where Ms. Brown's going, though. Where does it exist in writing that says you are required to do that? And,
I'd have to look at that.
Let's look at it. I mean, I'm not being combative on it, but let's look and see if it's in our contract. Maybe we amend the scope or amend our agreement with you, or it's in everybody's best interest. You're our city engineer, so this shouldn't be.
And we know who to look to if it's
not.
if it's missing.
Right. But in reality, let's just all remember to do it. And then
Well,
we wanna-
that doesn't work very
I
well
got-
because it's a tedious job.
Right.
It's a data entry job.
Let's, in the short term,
Yeah.
make sure it's written somewhere in an agreement. Let's, in the
Well-
long term, make sure that we actually do it.
Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, we could have that detail in what you come back with on this
Yeah, we can look at that.
agenda item.
We can do that.
And I'll say in the meantime, it won't fall through the cracks because we do a quarterly GIS map update. And so now every time I hear that, we have that meeting coming up, it will trigger me to,
Think what needs to go on it.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And it may be a better process to, I don't know how that GIS thing works, but as you're getting the periodic update, I mean, maybe we feed it in as we go. I don't know if that works or not. Anyway,
Could be.
you've heard the directive.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, council? Okay, we will bring a 9 and 10 back to you at the special meeting.
Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Greg.
Greg. Again, thank you for all your work and guiding us through this bid process. Because I'd never done it before.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move off of agenda item number 10, move on to agenda item number 11, discussion of possible action on a proposal from Crossroads Utility Services for the lead and copper revised rule, LCRR,
Data collection services due on October 14th, 2024. Ms. Wayman will tell us about this state requirement.
Sure. So Crossroads, who holds our water and wastewater licenses and our emergency maintenance and operations of our water and wastewater lines, brought this to our attention. This is a revised rule that came out from the EPA that requires us to have certain information documented about parts of our water system in relation to requiring, or the goal is to get safe water access by replacing all lead service lines. I believe we've already been kind of talking with Public Works about this. This was something that was on our radar, but not something that we necessarily have the manpower to do. And Crossroads did bring us this proposal for these services at the cost of $4,500. They would do the reporting that we are required to do before October of 2024. If anything is found that does need to then be replaced or changed out because of it, that would be at a separate cost. But this is just the first part, so we know what we have to do. Hopefully there's not a lot that is found that needs to be replaced or changed out. But this is a good step that we would request that the city council approve so Crossroads can get started on that.
That's it. Happy to take a motion from anyone.
Just looking at that, it seemed like there's one amount, but then if they find other things, there'll be a separate proposal.
Right, if there's anything that needs, actual, I guess, remediation. We also don't have the school or daycare compliant, so that's one thing that we won't have to worry about, but there may be a little bit of extra field verification depending on if they're not able to get the information they need from their review.
Okay, make a motion to approve the contract.
You have a motion by Mr. Glasheen. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Mr. Glasheen, a second by Mr. McDuffie. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Yes, ma'am.
Quick. My reading of this, and $4,500 is not that much, so it's not that big a deal, but this didn't feel like they had really written it for us.
Right.
Because their
That's true.
terminology was talking about districts and things that we don't have. It's like pretty easy to tell we don't have any schools in Rollingwood, so that could have been left off. I don't know if the church has a, Mother's Day Out program or something that qualifies as a daycare, but
I suspect that that's what happens when you have a state mandated thing that
gets
only a
rolled
handful
out
of people can do. So
Yes.
I'm sure that they change 2 lines in this and
And
send
It's
it
like
out.
the board of directors.
They work for some other districts in the area too. I think they work for Water District 10, so I'm guessing that was the
so it's
standard.
It's a little cookie cutter,
Yeah.
and I didn't know if the price was cookie cutter as well.
I
But
suspect that it is.
just would be nice to know that they are actually thinking about what we need, because they are in here doing all of our wastewater work already, so they kind of
Sure.
should know what we got going on, so.
Agreed.
That concerned me a little bit with the level of effort.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 5 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 12, discussion and possible action on a recommendation from the Park Commission regarding the use of the lower park for a movie night event open to Eanes Elementary families on December 2nd, 2023. Ms. Wayman?
Sure. So this went before the Park Commission at their last meeting. The Park Commission did propose that this would be approved by the City Council. They did make a few caveats, is that they would like there to be police presence and maintenance presence. So they did request that the Eanes ISD would get 2 police officers and 1 Public Works Department to be there to ensure safety and then proper cleanup after the event. I believe Eanes has agreed to that already, but we have Courtney Harvey here. She's representing tonight to discuss this the request.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the recommendation is to approve this. I remember doing a Christmas movie night with Mace when he was in kindergarten, and it was
Yeah.
a very nice night. I
Yeah.
wish I could still convince him to do that. But now he goes to see his own movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I still pay for them, but, or Holly does too. Anyway,
Yeah,
Go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, so this is one of our favorite community building events. Like Evan said, it's going to be on December 2nd, and we're kicking it off the holiday season showing Home Alone. One of the things we're really excited about is we've talked to the Rollingwood Police Department about incorporating the spirit of service to show the children that, this is kind of what the holiday season is about. And we're going to work with the police department to do a toy drive for Brown Santa as part of this event. I think you guys have some of the information in your packet. It would be on the lower field. The access would be starting at 4:30, but the event would run from 5 to 7:30 on a Saturday. There would be pre-purchased pizzas and snack and goodie bags kind of distributed at the pavilion. We have planned and budgeted for the use fee for the pavilion, 2 police officers, a maintenance staff member. We will have a crew cleaning up night of and come back and inspect it by daylight to make sure we didn't miss anything. First thing in the morning. We will be using the upper restrooms for most people. We do have a few children in wheelchairs and maybe some family members that we will have the restroom in City Hall to be ADA compliant, but we will be monitoring that and making sure no one else goes in. We will have that staffed. So that's kind of the basics. Anything else? Any other questions?
great. Thank you, Ms. Harvey.
Okay.
Any other questions, council? Yes, ma'am. Or happy to take a motion so we can get it. Someone wants to make a motion. Then we have further discussion.
Make a motion, we approve the Park Commission recommendation.
We have a motion by Mr. Glasheen. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Glasheen, a second by Ms. Brown. Carry on with discussion, if you have any. Ms. Hudson.
So we had, last month, there was some discussion or some outreach, if you will, to surrounding neighbors. And one of the surrounding neighbors sent in a letter to council that was not in the packet, that was very much not in favor of this. I didn't know if we had had any other notification to surrounding neighbors that this was happening or being proposed.
I don't.
No, the chair of this event reached out personally to the neighbors she knew were the closest to the park, try to be proactive at that. So that's the only, and then also going through to the park commission on the approval. I think are the only 2 communications that have been sent.
Right.
And it sounded like there was a little bit of I think there was some thought that it was a
For profit.
a commercialized issue, but obviously that's not the case.
And I will say there was a lot of discussion at the Park Commission, a lot of consideration of the issues and some proposed requirements, for example, for security, having some off-duty police officers here that y'all are gonna pay for.
Yep.
And my understanding is y'all are essentially just trying to break even and have a fun.
Yeah, it's a break even, and the PTO in general is a nonprofit also as
Right.
well.
Just curious why the lower park and not the upper park, when the parking is all up there, that would be farther away from the neighbors.
I
Do
believe
that
it's the baseball schedule at that point in time.
on the 2nd of December?
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe not.
I don't know.
Yeah, they've not played.
And the
They're
thought was
playing
that
baseball
that
in
the
December.
pavilion in the lower part kind of creates, you don't have to worry about the streets as much, the busy Rollingwood Drive, and it kind of creates a funnel to the, like we would be having the movie in the park that's right past the playground.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to envision how you put 300 people back there.
It's-
It's not very big.
And it's probably about 65 unique families, so a lot of those are, families with multiple kids that don't take up a lot of space.
Yeah, there weren't very. I mean, again, it's been 10 years, but there definitely wasn't 300 the last time
Yeah.
we did it. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's what we'd cap it at, but usually there's, even if people RSVP, there's a lot of no-shows.
The other thing I imagine is a lot of the younger children particularly will, from time to time, go over to the playground and mill about and that type of thing. So I think, having it kind of stuck back there where they have easy access to the playground, because they're going to do that anyway. Otherwise, we're managing 2 areas rather than one.
And wherever you set it up, I would assume your speakers will be facing back this direction too.
That's
so.
correct.
And it's over at what time? 7 o'clock?
Yeah, 7:30.
7:30.
And the house that is the most directly behind it, the Butlers are attending. They're an ESID, Eanes ISD family, Eanes Elementary.
Yeah, we didn't have any information about whether or not the other surrounding neighbors had been
Yeah.
notified or the city had done any outreach, because this one was very much opposed to the idea.
She certainly was. I think it's a Joe Pesci issue. It's not his best work. Okay, council, any further discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 5 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Look forward to hold the street down until I get back. Okay, with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 13, discussion of possible action to appoint a new member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. You did, council, under the consent agenda, accept Ms. Rodnick's resignation, and with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Wayman to tell you about who has applied.
Sure. So in our packet, we do have actually a number of people who have submitted applications for the Planning and Zoning Commission. We did reach out to everybody who was on the list ahead of this meeting to confirm that they were still interested. A few of the applications had been in there a while. And we did get a few back that declined to be appointed at this time. The only ones that were left that did or would like to be considered for this is Rebecca Tongsanoon. She had her application in on May 19th of 2022. And then Jeannie Nair submitted her application for the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 13th of this year. So those are the two that would like to be considered for this application.
So Rebecca was on RCDC
She was on our CDC for a while.
after this application was turned in.
No, I believe she left our CDC before this application. It's been a while, probably. I think it was during COVID that I remember early because it was all virtual meetings.
Okay.
So I think she submitted this afterwards. She wasn't able to make their afternoon meetings. They were at noon.
Yes. Anything else? Step right up. Please identify yourself.
Dave Bench, 1 Randolph, and I just wanted to acknowledge my support for Jeannie Nair. I had personally asked her to apply for this position under the understanding that nobody else at the time I was asking her to do this was actually interested in doing it. I actually found her in Europe on a Rhine River cruise, and she was good enough to get her application in time for it to at least show up in the packet. Actually, I have more information that I only this evening was able to pass on to Desiree. It's a full resume, and clear it as complete as what Rebecca Tomlinson has submitted. But I've had long discussions with Jeannie on a variety of things, and I think she would be a perfect fit for our commission. So I ask you to give her special consideration, please.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jeannie Nair.
You have a motion by Mr. Glasheen. Is there a second?
Second.
You had the last one. So you have a motion by Mr. Glasheen and a second by Ms. Brown. Further discussion? Hearing none.
So I'll just
Alec?
say-
Yes, sir.
I just want to say
Go ahead.
that, I guess we're not doing this process anymore where we factor in people that have been put their name in, because it seems like Rebecca put her name in months before, and Jeannie is the most recent one on the list. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That's how I always used to do mine, but it's at y'all's discretion. I've always
thought that it was a first in, first out. It was a good way to do it, but it is whatever council wants to do.
And on that point, I think it's important that these appointments reflect the philosophy of the council, as they're supposed to be an extension of the council's policy-making arm. And I've never met Rebecca Tong Sinoon, and I'm sure she's a very qualified person, and I appreciate her willingness to serve. But I have talked to Jeannie Nyer, and Jeannie Nyer talked to me about serving on P&Z, or she had applied for council, to run for council too briefly. But I've encouraged her to serve, and I know her, so I'm going to support her. And particularly, I put a lot of weight on Mr. Dave Bench's recommendation, since I think he's done great service for P&Z and on the RCD or the CRCRC. I think that's a big influence for me personally.
Alec?
One more comment. Yeah,
Yes,
this
sir.
came in on Friday, just to point that out, right before the packet went out.
But she had also applied to serve on the CRCRC, so she had applied for that. And I think Jeannie is a good fit because we are losing a member in Amy who has been involved in the city and lived in the city for decades, and so has a good experience with kind of the feel of the neighborhood and the things that are important to the community and all that. And Jeannie would do a good job of kind of filling in that role, because she's also lived here for many years, and I think that would be a good fit.
Okay.
I would agree. And I think Jeannie's previously served on the council. She knows, she's taking on this role at a time when the ability to bring the community on board and find a solution to our zoning issues that everyone is satisfied with. I think she's exceptionally talented for that. She's been a manager of a major state agency and had a lot of responsibility for a lot of time and handles controversy well. So I think she's a great asset for the kind of work the P&Z will be looking at in the next year or two.
Well, now you piqued my interest. What agency was she at?
She was with, I think it's Health and Human Services.
Okay.
I'll have to look back. Maybe it's on her
Well,
application.
Desiree has the new
But
resume, right?
That's okay. I didn't mean to take us down. I just got it.
Yeah.
Just
And her son's a general contractor.
Yes.
It's probably not on the resume.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, council. You have a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
There being 4 ayes and 1 nay, motion carries. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 14. Discussion and possible action regarding the policy of leasing fields 3, 4, and 5 and fields 1 and 2 to I-9 Sports. I think this is Mr. Glasheen's agenda item, and I'll recognize Mr. Glasheen.
I just wanted to see if council is willing to give direction to city staff when it comes to leasing the fields to I-9. I-9, I'm sure, is a great asset for the community, and a lot of people that live here as kids participate, but it is a commercial program, and I have had some residents ask me, why can't I-9 use fields 1 and 2, or why, could they? And so that 3, 4, and 5 would be available for the residents here who might want to go up and walk their dogs and go somewhere, and the residents can't use 1 and 2 to walk their dogs. So if it, not trying to squelch I-9 in any way or support what I-9's doing, want them to be able to work here, but if you're able to contract with them to use fields 1 and 2, and if that works out, that'd be great. And if it's a problem, you could come back and let us know, but otherwise I'd ask that y'all consider, if council agrees, to consider just contracting them on 1 and 2.
Okay. Was there a motion or?
The motion would be to direct city staff to when they lease to I-9, to have them use fields 1 and 2 instead of 3, 4, and 5. And that if that's a major problem, you can come back and let us know if they need relief from that, but that would be the direction unless there's a change.
Okay, you have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Mr. Glasheen, a second by Mr. McDuffie. With that, we'll have further discussions as staff have. You have flexibility, it sounds like, in the motion. So if it is a problem, you can come back to council. But it sounds like guidance versus a mandate. But do we have thoughts?
Generally, our current policy is we try to direct them to the smallest field available or that would fit the group. They have sometimes in the past requested 3, 4, and 5 because they have though they may not have 50 people or a large group. They would prefer to not work around the bases and the dirt on the field, but we've always tried to get them on 1 and 2 if that's a possibility, and only if they need 3, 4, and 5. But we're happy to take further direction. I would just say that sometimes they do need to advertise for their camps, so we would like to let them know plenty in advance if they're not going to be able to use fields. And so if it's something that does require us to come back to council for further authorization, may be difficult to work with their schedule a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I would just say that the park commission had a lot of discussion about leasing and the at least in terms of setting rates or recommending rates for the leasing of the fields. I just wondered if we should have them take a look at this as well, because it seems like it's like recommending getting rid of 3, 4, and 5 as an option for leasing, unless we come back to council if it's a problem.
Do we have any particular guidelines on who we lease to and what the restrictions are?
I think we do.
We do. We require them to fill out our commercial usage application, which includes different, the certifications, what the use is for, that they have their CPR certifications for their trainers. So basically the same things that like your workout group in the park and stuff fills out. We've never, since we went through this with the park commission, we haven't had anyone else come in that's been like a constant long-term user of the park. I think staff would find that as something that would want to come to the park commission and then for them to make a recommendation to council if we had someone who wanted to come in and use it, every week again or something like that. But as far as I-9 goes, they've been considered an approved vendor because they have done business here in the past. And so
How often are they leasing the fields?
3 times a year. Yeah, they do spring break for a week,
Just like a winter camp
a winter camp.
in the fall camp and the summer camp.
Okay. Yeah, they do like 3 stints of a camp, and they're usually here for 1 week to 2 weeks, and in the mornings from like 9 to noon, generally.
That's in the summer, right?
They do a spring, a summer, and a fall camp, usually. So spring break, summertime. I think the winter one maybe in the evenings too. Is it after?
It's awful dark in the evenings.
Sure.
I think it's.
They submit they submit them as they decide they have the numbers to make it, and they reach out about the application. So we don't have their full year schedule currently. They usually let us know about a month in advance, maybe a month or 2.
Okay, council, you do have a motion and a second before you. If I'm not hearing any further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
Being 4 ayes, 1 nay, motion carries. That will move on to agenda item number 15, discussion and possible action regarding fundraising for the park capital improvements and an endowment. This is Mr. Glasheen's item. Recognize Mr. Glasheen.
So, as you guys know from past council meetings, I've been working with the Park Commission and RCDC about how to fund maintenance and capital improvements in the park. Made a lot of progress with the Park Commission in terms of trying to separate maintenance items from capital improvement projects, and to work with the city staff, with Ashley and Izzy, to get follow through on those projects from between Park Commission meetings. On capital improvement projects, there are probably a number of projects that are needed in the park. One of the things that RCDC brought up when we were talking about having them fund capital improvement projects was private fundraising, and of course the Park Commission has brought up private fundraising as well, since that is part of their charter mission, is to raise funds for the park. One of the things RCDC had mentioned was, creating a foundation, a 501c3 that could accept donations and manage them for the park. But my experience has been that municipalities already serve that function and can accept tax-deductible donations and could manage the funds in a fund within the city. And as we go forward, as working with the Park Commission, who would be, principally driving any fundraising efforts, I just wanted to see if I can give them back guidance that they could solicit donations to the city that would go into a city-managed fund for capital improvement projects. As far as what that would get spent on, nothing would change from current policy. I believe that the de facto policy now is that we want Park Commission approval for any projects. Council has to approve any projects. I think if we had private donations that were in the city budget, that would help us with RCDC to go to them and ask them to fund projects. If we could show them that maybe we're putting some part of, we're getting some funds from the city capital improvement budget, some from private donations, and some from RCDC. And together, I think then we could fund things on a project-by-project basis, with the priority of the projects being being set by the Park Commission as we go forward. That's just my thinking, and I just wanted to get feedback from city and council on those issues so I could report back to Park Commission and RCDC.
So one thing that I'll say about the budget, and we probably didn't cover it in the budget workshop because it typically carries a zero balance. And so it wouldn't have shown up on the printout that you worked with in your work session. But we do carry a line item already in the budget for park donations, and it shows up in your budget workshop when there's money in it, but it doesn't show up on the printout when there's not money in it. So I think you could report back to anyone and everyone that what you're describing already exists. And if somebody wants to put some money in it, you'll start seeing it on your budget workshop.
I think the Park Commission would like to start trying to do some fundraising. And another issue that might be helpful to give feedback to the Park Commission is what sorts of recognition council would support. And because, there's been some discussion about, do we want to have memorials everywhere in the park? Or should we limit it to brick memorials, or should we consider it more on a case-by-case basis? I don't know if there's any guidance that we want to give now, or any just feedback on that issue, or just wait until we get further down the road. But it's something to be thinking about.
I think it depends on how much they donate.
And how big a sign they want,
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think
or
that's
what
fair.
recognition.
Well, I mean, we have things that have been donated to the park. We have people that have donated trees, and there's plaques for that. People have donated benches, there's plaques for that. People have made donations towards the pavilion. There were donations for the playscape. That was all fundraised by the Women's Club. The field house was a big donation from the Optimist Club. That's why it's got a name on it, because that donation came from them. So, I mean, we've done this for years.
The historical practice has been that as funds are raised and a project is approved, there's an included item about how the donor might be recognized on a project-by-project basis.
That sounds
Yeah.
like
Would
the
that be-
feedback I'm looking for, so
Right,
let's
there,
go.
there's been a project identified and then it's been fundraised for. And when, like, the field house, when, you know, it was like over half of it, I think, was donated from the Optimist Club and the, what, the Dwellmore. That's how they got their name. Or his name on that one, so.
I planned on doing a huge donation when I won the lotto, but that didn't work.
You should consider a testamentary gift.
Yeah.
Well, and we've had some memorial dedications as well. from,
Right.
You
Well,
know,
like a lot of the
tree-
bench, the
trees
benches,
for-
trees and benches stuff.
Trees for Hazel Maxwell.
Right.
Yeah.
May I say something?
Sure.
Shanti Jayakumar, 3309 Park Hills Drive. This brings up a very important issue because the Women's Club, as you all know, since our inception in 1958, all the money we raise is for the beautification of the park and public spaces. And I can name a whole bunch of them, including the water collection system down here, which I hope gets used. That was money from us, the curtains and the mats, and I mean, so many things around that you see came from the Women's Club. We are looking for projects to donate to. The pandemic put a damper on some of that because we didn't have our 5K, we didn't have our July 4th, which are our big money raisers. And I've been a historian for the Women's Club for 29 years, so I think I know a little bit about where our money has gone, and I truly appreciate having the support of the council in helping the Women's Club, because we are there to help you to make the park a better place for our community. And I think, to me, the Park Commission is the starting point for any project. That's why they were put in place when we bought this 8.934 acres for citizen money of $250,000, which was our refund from the water bills that we were overpaying on. So that's the reason we have our park, is because we, the citizens, said, don't give us the money back, just use it and buy the park. Unfortunately, we didn't buy the 1.1 acres. So down there by where you live.
It's now 6 Pleasant Cove.
Yeah, it's we had the option of first refusal on that property. We didn't have the money, the city didn't have the money, and so we didn't buy it. So we still have a lot of park. And I think, to me, I'm very passionate about this park, and I will do whatever it takes in my capacity to make sure that we retain it as for the enjoyment of our current and future generations. And that includes not just having private donations and have their names all over the fence like we see at Cedar Creek Elementary or something like that. We don't want it that way. This is a gem of a park. We need to preserve it the way it is. I don't think anybody has complained about anything that's going on at the park other than, we need a little bit of extra shade, or we need the walking path to be better, or please fix the drainage kind of thing. And, the Park Commission does such a yeoman's work in trying to identify what needs to be done. We couldn't get a better Park Commission than what we have right now. They're dedicated, and all the other Park Commission members over the years, dedication to the highest extent. And they don't even have the charter, they're an advisory council, they don't have the money, and yet they work at it. So we need to appreciate what the Park Commission does totally, 200%. So please get their inputs right off the bat before you all start off on this, that, or the other project. To me, this is a grounds up, grassroots level city. That's where we start, not from the top down. So I am dedicated to seeing that happens, whatever it takes. So I know that you all have your heart in the right places, and I know you'll work hard to do this, but please know that start at the Park Commission level. They are dedicating so many hours of their time that they don't need to, but they are. and for no recognition, but they believe in our park. So I'm very committed to supporting whatever grassroots level stuff comes up. Please let it percolate up and not percolate down. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. And now you know where to put the money when that happens. Okay, do you need anything else on this, Mr. Lasheen, or did that get you what you need?
No, that is,
Well, one point that I would like put in is, I think when the park commission is looking, I've said this before, but it bears repeating, when they're looking at doing fundraising, my experience is people are willing to donate to specific agenda items and stuff. So the reason we have a zero balance in our parks general fund is because people don't feel comfortable just putting money in for whatever.
Yeah.
So the direction I would give the park commission, not to be too top down on them, is to identify and to prioritize projects and then do fundraising directly related to those projects. And I think they'll be highly effective if that's the case. And part of that is really being specific as to the scope of the project, you know, to the degree that it can be fleshed out prior to doing fundraising. I think they'll be very effective. We have a very generous populace here that are willing to give. I've spoken to people multiple times who, when you speak to them about something specific, they're willing to give at the drop of a dime. So,
and to wrap it up, hopefully, Shanti, thank you for coming and sharing those thoughts about the Park Commission, and I certainly completely agree with all the thoughts that you expressed about the Park Commission, and I am glad to be working with the Park Commission to improve communication with the city staff and maintenance department, but also to help get them support for the projects that they have that go beyond maintenance or into capital improvements. I think there's been a lot of frustration in recent years, maybe since you've served on it, but in recent years I've heard that there's a lot of frustration expressed that they don't get anything done, and that the things that they come up with and ask to get done never get funded, and that there's no money for it. And so there's some talk about separating their projects from maintenance items into capital improvements, and then they're working on rebuilding their list right now from past walkthroughs and coming up with a list and dividing them into capital improvement projects, and then hopefully and maintenance, and then working with city staff on the maintenance list, but then coming up with some cost estimates on any capital improvement projects that the Park Commission recommends. And I think that it is important that we support the Park Commission and help get them the funding that they need to get the projects done that they support. We do have some opportunities, I think, with the RCDC, because they can use money that they bring in for capital improvements in the park, as well as their economic incentives. And I personally like to see it spent more on the park than on economic incentives, although they're both important functions. And I do think there's a role for private fundraising, since that is part of the Park Commission's charge in their original ordinance that creates them. So I agree with you, and I appreciate you expressing those thoughts, and I would urge the rest of council to support Park Commission requests, which I guess segues us hopefully right into the next item, which is reiterating the Park Commission's request for a drainage study.
And with that, we will wrap up agenda item number 15, move on to agenda item number 16, discussion and possible action regarding a Park Commission request for a full drainage study of the upper and lower park by a civil engineer. Consider including a detention pond north of the Western Hills Athletic Facility and coordinate drainage from the park with construction of the new Western Hills Tennis Court and new City Hall. I'll point out to council that the first portion of this posted agenda item is the Park Commission request, and the second portion is the added agenda item by Mr. Glasheen. And with that, I will recognize Mr. Glasheen for his agenda item.
So I'm not sure why we didn't approve the request for a drainage study of the park last time. Park Commission requested this. There was a lot of discussion about it. It seems to be like a starting point for other projects they might do in the park to address erosion or drainage. And I certainly think that an engineering drainage study would be useful. When you look at the drainage ditch and erosion that exists between Western Hills and the Upper Park parking lot, it's a pretty rough looking ditch, and a lot of that is on the Western Hills side, which is, I guess, their problem in large part, but it all flows downstream and it goes down to Pleasant Cove, and then goes, I guess, underground and continues downstream. But I added, just considering the drainage in a broader perspective in relation to the Western Hills new sport court or tennis court that they're building, because I know they've just submitted their engineering, their plans for approval, and it must include some drainage considerations and studies, and there may be some drainage flow that's been calculated that could be coordinated with what we're doing, and particularly if we're going to do the new city hall as well. There's going to have to be some drainage studies involved with that. And I think really all we're asking for at this point is to ask our engineers to come back and give us a proposal for a drainage study. That's it. Tell us what it would cost, what the scope of it would be, whether they think it would be useful to us in planning further improvements in the park. And I added consideration of the detention pond because at least two very smart citizens have suggested to me that it might be a good idea to put a detention pond up there, and I went and looked at that area, and it looked like it'd be relatively easy and inexpensive to do. It could be very natural with an earth berm. But in any case, I'd just like to get the engineers to give us a proposal so we could consider a proposal. That's the motion, for a proposal from the engineering firm.
I'm not sure I heard the motion.
I'm going to ask you to just read. That was a good layout. I
Okay.
appreciated it, but it kind of flowed into a motion. So
sure.
let's tighten up the motion.
The motion is that we ask city staff to get our engineering firm to give us a proposal to do a drainage study that covers the entire park and considers possible coordination with the future city hall construction or with Western Hills work, and include in the study the utility and potential cost of a detention pond.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Glasheen and a second by Mr. McDuffie for discussion. And with that, discuss away.
I think we're looking possibly for the feasibility of the detention pond, or whether that will be useful or that type of thing, and I'm not sure. Yeah.
And
I think we said you said a different word.
Yeah. And to clarify, that in the motion was just to have K-Freeze bring back a proposal about what this scope would look like.
Exactly.
So you'd have another bite of the apple. I might would have asked you to delay that previously, but I think we're finally sort of topping the hill with K-Freeze's workload. They've been super busy with the drainage projects and the bid package and all that, but I think we're on the verge of them having a little bit more bandwidth for us, so that would be fine. Yes, ma'am.
What's the status of the Western Hills permit? Hasn't it been granted?
I'll have to ask staff on that. Nikki?
It just finished its notification period and was sent to K-Freeze for their first review just this week.
So is this a new proposal for, I thought they were proceeding on the basis of the application they filed that went before the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, so previously in the past years, they had applied for the site plan and then it had expired. So what came before the Board of Adjustments, they are going forward with that plan. So they just now submitted for it.
So that, do they
Few
have
weeks
to
ago.
do a new drainage, TCEQ drainage review?
I believe they will. I'm not quite sure what their full package looked like.
So notice on that is supposed to go out to everyone in the city, right?
It's 250 feet.
Our park zone was everybody in the city.
I don't know.
For the variance, for the
variance,
BOA
yeah.
hearing, it
This
was.
is just their
I-
notification.
Okay,
of-
we're getting dangerously close to being off the agenda item, so
Well,
I can
the-
still
the-
make it
the-
relatable, but
The problem I have here is I don't know if this pond is gonna solve what Western Hills needs
Right.
to do on their own, or how that, overlaps. And so, I need to have an answer to that question in order to know how to vote on this motion.
I think what they have submitted, they have to model some things. So I think they may already have a few models.
Well, the point
Which
is
would
they
help.
don't have a drainage, they don't have an approved drainage proposal at this point,
No.
is what I'm understanding.
It just went to review this week. Like, it's floating.
Alright. Well, I would, I'm not in a position to be able to consider whether we put in a detention, whether the city does a detention pond or a study of, because we know that there's gonna be additional drainage from the additional tennis courts, but we don't know what that is at this point. I would, be in favor of asking for a proposal for a park drainage study, but, and maybe we direct the K-Freeze to look at whatever drainage plan is coming out of Western Hills, but it seems premature for us to be able to address that at this point.
Yeah,
And it surprises me also, I'll just say this, it surprises me that we can have a new drainage plan being submitted subsequent to a, application that was granted a variance, because I didn't think you could change the plan, that you, as submitted for the variant. I mean, after this variance had been granted, I don't think you can change the underlying permit. So I'm a little confused about what they're doing at this point.
yeah, I'm not
As well.
up to speed on it, so I'll have to.
So that's another concern I have with addressing anything related to the Western Hills facility at this point.
Yeah, I think we need to do a drainage study of the park, upper and lower, and clearly the impact of City Hall, which we have not done anything to address at this point. You know, that will affect City Hall, and City Hall needs to be considered. I don't feel like it's the responsibility of the city to pay for drainage facilities for the pool.
I do think,
Well, they should be taking care of their business. Clearly, it's gonna discharge to us. There's also a difference between a detention pond and a retention pond. And I think that we should ask for a drainage study without specifying what pieces. I mean, I think the whole point of getting a drainage study is for them to tell us what would be useful instead of us telling them what we want.
Well, the motion was for them to tell us if that would be useful. That was part of the motion, like almost word for word. And I'm afraid if we wait until Western Hills is done and their plans are approved, it may be too late for us to have any impact on their drainage issues either, which might affect
May I address
us.
that?
And sure, jump in there.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am, sorry, yes.
The concern is that there are impacts that are happening today. And we know that that the water from above the Western Hills and the Western Hills parking lot comes down that gully and comes into Pleasant Cove. We don't know, it sounds like as of right now, what they will be required under our current ordinances to do for the additional flows of water that are going to be coming from the additional tennis courts. And so I don't think we can offer to consider the city doing a detention pond until we know what that's going to be, and we just don't know that yet. I think there's a possibility that there could be some kind of retention, detention, some way to mitigate the water that's coming off Western Hills. But I don't want to take over the responsibility for that until we know what they're going to be doing. That's my concern.
Well, no one's talking about offering to build a detention pond or taking over anyone's responsibility. All the motion is to ask the engineers to give us a proposal and tell us whether we ought to consider looking at a detention pond in the study.
Okay.
That's it.
How would they do that if they don't know what Western Hills is doing? Plus, if we're asking K-Freeze to do it, they're already having to evaluate whether or not what Western Hills has proposed meets our code requirements and has gotten TCEQ approval. It seems.
I think it's a good time to consider the whole drainage situation because of the Western Hills is going to have to get approval. And I would even, if we can do it, I would suggest that we ask our engineers to not give Western Hills approval of their drainage plan until we make sure that it fits in with whatever drainage plans that we come up with for the park. Because I don't want theirs to just get approved and then we can't order them to do anything differently. If we're going to look at the whole drainage picture and calculate water flows, they're going to be doing some of that themselves. We can take advantage of the fact that they're having to spend some money on engineering. We can make sure that it's really adequate by making sure that it fits in with our park drainage plans.
Well,
that's what my thinking is.
I'm with you, and that's why I thought the variance that they requested should have been denied until all of that was worked out. But they've been granted a variance.
Yep, they were.
And so I'm confused as to the legal status of all of this because I don't think you can change a drainage plan, which was a condition of granting the variance. They made the representation that their drainage plan would do X, Y, and Z, and the BOA granted a variance with that in consideration. So I think we've got to figure that out before we can take a next step.
Well, my motion is to ask our engineers to give us a proposal for a drainage plan as recommended by the Park Commission and requested by the Park Commission. That's the motion. And we can leave off discussion of detention ponds. I think that Council Member Hudson has a good point that, we want to make it clear that we're not telling them what to study or what we might need. We're just asking them to look at drainage and give us a proposal for what we ought to study, what should the scope of it be, and what might it cost. And then when we get their proposal, we can look at the scope of their proposal, and we can ask, I think they should come present it, and we can ask those kinds of questions too. With regard to the legal question, my guess is that a engineering approval of a drainage plan is a requirement for a building permit application, and they don't have a building permit yet, and they're going to have to go through engineering drainage review as a part of this permit application, and that's about to start. So I just think it's a good time to ask our engineers, what should we be looking at on drainage, particularly since it's a Park Commission request. And I think it's important that we support the Park Commission, and when they ask us to do something, let's do it for them if it's not a problem.
I didn't see the Western Hills issue come out of the park recommendation.
It didn't
Park
come out of the
Commission, but-
Park Commission recommendation. My comment is that when we ask them to give us a scope of what's reasonable for the drainage study, we might just point out to them that there is something going on over at Western Hills that, you know, has a pending permit application that does affect drainage, and that it all flows together on our property, and that just might be something that would be considered. But they can tell us that when they come and give us a scope.
Okay, council, you do have, you have a motion and a second.
And I'm happy to amend the motion to just limit it to asking the engineering firm to give us a proposal for a drainage study of the Upper Lower Park, and they should propose the scope and propose cost of that, and they might give us options on the scope. So we'll leave it more wide open, and I think that's a better motion after the discussion. So
Okay, you have an amended motion. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Mr. Glasheen, a second by Mr. McDuffie. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 5 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you, council. We'll move on to agenda item number 17, discussion regarding coyote incidents in the neighborhood. Mr. Glasheen, this is your agenda item. I'll
So,
recognize you.
I did hear from a resident who emailed me and let me know their dog had been mauled by a coyote quite severely. And I didn't know much about municipal coyote policy. I mentioned this and talked to city staff about it, and they suggested we talk to the city of Austin because we didn't have any real institutional memory here on dealing with coyotes. But I did hear back from Ryan Clinton, a resident who informed me that he had served on the Travis County Austin Animal Advisory Commission, which has worked heavily on the coyote issue many years ago. And he says the main point is you cannot trap or kill your way out of coyotes. They're a natural part of the ecosystem, and any that are removed will be naturally replaced. That being said, if a particular coyote is identified and demonstrates a threat to health or safety, then it could be removed or killed humanely, not through trapping. Not through leg traps. So I thought that was good information and helpful, and I think if that's the case, then I would just, it gives me the information I need to have feedback to the resident who contacted me to let them know that's probably where we stand. But I just wanted to bring it up to council and see if anyone else had any other thoughts.
I do have some institutional memory. We did deal with this issue or had this discussion about 7 years ago, I think. And sort of came to that same conclusion. I'll say that for the first time in a while, I had a 10-point buck in my yard last week. And typically, once I start seeing 10-point bucks, then it's usually about the same time we start seeing coyotes, and then the deer go away, and then the coyotes go away. And I'll let you draw your own conclusions about what's happening there. So I think we're probably in the first stages of that life cycle.
So can we get some more information about the details of the attack so that residents know where and what time of day and, what things
And that
we should be concerned about?
Yeah, and that was and I'll tell you, I've certainly seen a bunch of coyotes in my yard and bucks too. I don't have.
I can help a little bit with that.
All the
It's
details,
dusk,
yeah.
and they
Yeah.
hunt at night.
Yeah.
So
And don't leave your cat food out.
correct.
And if you see a lost cat poster, it's probably got eaten by a coyote.
Right.
Outdoor cats don't last very long here, I don't think.
I had a game camera up out my kitchen door
Oh my gosh.
and got, at the time I had a feral cat that I fed outside, and that's what was attracting the coyotes,
The cat or the cat food?
the cat food.
Okay.
Yeah. I've seen more foxes than I've ever seen recently as
I
well.
love foxes.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of foxes.
I like
lately.
coyotes too.
Mhm. Okay, Shanti.
While we are on this subject, maybe also add skunks to coyotes. This is going on all over the city right now. We had a skunk die under our deck.
Oh, no.
And to this day, we've had that smell after all kinds of. We had to look online, all kinds of stuff. Somebody said bring charcoal briquettes and put it down there. Put what do you call it? Baking soda, brought all kinds of stuff. Anyway, it was dead. But then you can't remove it. It was under the deck where you couldn't reach it. Then we called the city hall. I tried to ask one of the people, do you know what we can do about this? We never had this. We've been in our house almost 40 years. Never had a skunk there. But recently, while we walk, we can smell skunk all over town. So we called the animal protection, whatever. They come and they set up a trap, and for a week, it's $600. And if they catch something, they will take it away. If not, you again ask them for another $600 for another week. They come Monday and take it off Friday. And we can't be spending that kind of money. We don't have that to spend on animals that can get caught. Maybe not the skunk, maybe something else. So I would like to see if the city can have, I know the city staff has got things to do, but as a community, as a municipality, if we had some way of deterring, or, deterrence is the first thing I would think. I don't know. Collectively, maybe we can have some ideas put out there as to how we can.
I think this is a good women's club project.
Anyway, what I wanted to report back is that it costs a lot of money to have a trap and have a. That's a rolling wood price, probably. I don't know. Out in the country,
I can beat
maybe
that price,
$100.
by the way.
Anyway, $600, $700, and they don't catch anything. I mean, that doesn't work out for most people. But add skunks to it, and they are people will do something about it if it's a skunk. So just put it out there and tell us if you know something you can do. You had it too.
And if you get sprayed, tomato juice is the best solution for that. So.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Baking soda and peroxide.
Yeah.
Yep.
Works great.
No, it works.
What?
Nothing.
No,
the baking
she's
soda-
right.
the baking soda and peroxide
and a tablespoon
Good-
of dish soap.
Dawn. You put it on there,
That
let it
works.
sit there for 10 minutes, wash your dog, came in the house.
Tomato juice does not do a thing. You need to oxidize it.
Yeah. Chemical reaction.
I actually do have more to say about skunks, but it's not it's not on agenda item 17. Next time we'll post for coyote and related
And skunks.
Related
pests.
critters.
Yeah, related critters. Okay, if there's no other discussion on agenda item number 17, we will move on to agenda item number 18. Update on the Mopac South project. I mainly posted this agenda item just so we could publicly post for all to see the response letter that we did get back from CTRMA related to the letter that I sent recently at your request and approval. It's somewhat self-explanatory, but it does look like we have not totally been lost on their radar. They are aware that they have not posted responses to our last round of comments, and they do plan on doing that, and we'll post that at some point in the future. And they do also plan on having a technical working group meeting prior to any future public meetings. Obviously, the letter doesn't give us a lot of detail on timeline, but I do think the letter served its purpose to put ourselves back on their radar. So I think that's good. It's publicly posted here on this agenda. We've also sent this letter as an update to our task force members, and we posted it on our website related to the Mopac South project. So that's all I have for the most part on this, unless there are questions. One thing I will say, because I did not include this in the public comment section on items not on the agenda, so I'm going to tie it in here. You'll like what I do. I want to recognize Michaela and hope that she will probably cover transportation issues at some point in the near future, because in her work being accepted by Texas State into the Masters of Public Administration program. So See how I tied that to transportation? Is that
Well
good?
done.
Yeah, thanks. Congratulations, and we look forward to your guidance on transportation-related issues in the future.
It's avoidable, congratulations.
Yeah.
So is that gonna be a supplement to your work at the city, or is that? Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, she's not leaving. It's
Okay.
part-time.
Well, I just
Um,
wanted to make sure we were
Yeah,
clear on that.
yeah,
So-
yes, we're not, it's not a goodbye.
You're
It's,
not allowed to
No.
leave.
We're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it all
We're
work.
very proud of her. So. That's all we have for the evening, council. Nice job, 9:35, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You have a motion to adjourn by Ms. Hudson and a second. All those in favor say aye.